Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News, and we actually have an update to the Erich Schwer blackface photo that was unearthed from a 2011 yearbook in Bedminster, New Jersey. As we know, Erich posted an apology statement on Instagram, but it was not addressed on the Bachelorette finale 2 weeks ago, leaving people very upset that the show chose 3 hours worth of other conversations and not what could have been a productive conversation. We're going to get into that right now. Very interesting thing happened last night where the Bachelorettes responded to a comment that basically said that Erich has reached out to us. So for a lot of people that are asking why conversations haven't happened, it begs the question whether or not the show is preventing a dialogue of progress. Rachel Lindsay has said this in the past regarding these sort of issues. As sure as there will be roses, there will be racism. Sigh, somebody has to say it. This is a picture they should have posted and addressed tonight in the finale instead of the text from the ex. They really missed a mark in a necessary and important conversation that was intentionally not conveyed. This was an opportunity for Erich to put action to his Instagram post rather than hide behind it. Unfortunately, not all of us can hide in the same way when we are so highly offended by it. And it does beg the question as to why this conversation hasn't happened. And a lot of people are wondering who's at fault for that. My general viewpoint is that Gabby and Erich wanted to address it on the After the Final Rose. We know Rachel Recchia had mentioned that Gabby wanted to talk about it. So if Gabby wanted to talk about it and she was the star of the show, why didn't that happen? What sort of pushback are they getting from the PR and legal over at Bachelor that makes them not want to talk about it? So this is what makes Erich's comments all the more interesting to say, well, look, Erich will tell you probably he's got no shortage of free time. He doesn't have a job. There's plenty of time to have a nice long conversation about this. And there hasn't been any quote unquote performative work done, which doesn't really please anybody. You know, they used to be back in the day, politicians, they were, hugging babies. Everything was like a campaign to them. And a lot of times when there's sort of a controversy, people just want to put out the fire. But now that we find out that there's this comment that happened here, you wonder what might be going on behind the scenes that may actually be getting turned down. Now, as you guys know, I haven't been soft on the Bachelor producers. I've reached out to them in the last 2 months to have an interview with Clayton Echard and Michael A. Michael, I wanted to talk about his late wife, and my wedding's coming up. And Michael, I wanted to talk about the subject of till death do us part, and the idea that how you can celebrate each other's lives and basically just have a good conversation about love. Well, apparently that was too much for Bachelor producers. With Clayton Echard, I wanted to talk about bullying. I wanted to talk about mental health. And not too often do we get that conversation amongst the men in our community. And I thought it would be a good conversation to have, which is in front of what I like to think is actually the largest independent Bachelor Nation News medium out there, platform out there. We might not be the largest recappers, but no one's covering what we're covering to the extent that we're covering it. And Bachelor producers are declining those conversations with me. Hey, they have the right to do so, and I have the right to call them out. They are spineless, and like I've said with corporations, they are psychopathic in the sense they don't care about progress. They don't care about having these difficult conversations. All they care about is appeasing as many people as possible so they can sell their Charmin paper towels. That's all they care about. Hate it all you want, but they get to go home. Their names aren't attached to it. They're not getting comments sent to their parents. They're not, you know what I mean? So accountability. So here's what Bachelorettes had said. Accountability is self-reflecting, apologizing, making amends, and changing your behavior so the harm you caused doesn't happen again. It is a process and not a destination. Over the years, accountability has been at the heart of transformative justice work. In this video, transformative and restorative justice practitioners discuss how accountability is enacted in some challenges in the journey. Project Nia and the Barnard Center for Research on Women. Okay, so the Bachelorettes are doing that work. They're doing always say the Lord's work as sort of a joke, but they're doing the work of progress and having these tough conversations. And not only that, but bending the conversation in the direction of progress when corporations wouldn't. They wouldn't do it. The show would never cast anyone but white leads. They just wouldn't until there's petitions to get them to change. So we look at that in a certain light when we hear and read this comment, not to let Erich off the hook, but just understand what we're dealing with. We're dealing in I know Rachel Lindsay has said this in the past, that there's nothing in the contract that prevents social media reach out, but the contract does prevent Erich from going on podcasts that are not pre-approved. My general guess here is that he did not get approved to go on Bachelorette's podcast and have Bachelorette's podcast. I said Bachelorette's podcast. That he did not get approved to go on their podcast, and that this conversation is not happening when it should be happening, which is at the height of the momentum to have the most exposure on the conversation. What the Bachelor producers would rather do is have the conversation die down, which is why they didn't address it on their largest platform, but they threw breadcrumbs to all the pigeons, all the alumni, and said, here, talk about it on your podcast, knowing full well that they were talking about it on the echo chamber. So Bachelor producers put everyone in their own echo chamber, and then they get the maximum amount of eyeballs with the least amount of controversy, which normally that's good. You don't want controversy, but we're trying to put out fires. We're trying to have conversation. Conversation is a good thing here. So here's what the Bachelorettes said in response to a comment. I believe this was deleted. Someone had commented something negatively about Erich, and here was their response. Unfortunately, you don't actually know what you're talking about, but sending you well wishes. Erich has already reached out to us with interest in not only a conversation, but in learning more and being in community with us. The nexus of our work lies in giving folks grace, room to grow, and garner understanding with one another. It's how transformative justice works. We've no interest in garnering power over anyone or any particular situation. Encourage you to look up We Will Not Cancel Us by Adrienne Murray Brown. Give it a read. It's a great resource. We also have resources we've built educating folks on the historical uses of blackface, their roots beyond vaudeville and Broadway, and how they've historically helped to build and sustain stereotypes in our social systems and excuse and justify state-sanctioned violence and otherwise against minorities. It's built off of not only academic research, but also our knowledge as professionals in the entertainment space and advocates in the social justice world. We think you'd benefit greatly from it generally, but it will also provide more context to our work in the Bachelor Nation space. Stay lifted and be well. I have to say, the ladies of the Bachelorettes, I've seen them in other aspects of the grace they've put out there, and they are practicing what they preach. I have to tell you this. I've seen others try to knock them down. They don't take the bait. They're doing great work. Conversation, grace, room for growth, room for change. All very important things. And it's easy to have grace for those that we either agree with, that look like us, or that haven't done anything that is that wrong. The difficult part is having grace for those that we don't want to have grace for. It's actually working against our genetics. Our genetics tell us, pick a side, be tribal, us versus them. Those genetics come in, that us versus them feeling that's built into our tribal instincts goes across, depending on what country you live in, what state, what county, what your skin color looks like, your socioeconomic level. So all these different aspects can lead to tribal thinking. And what's important is to have grace for people that may exist outside of your own perceived tribe. So very, very happy that they're sharing all that they are, and just also wondering what the hell is going on back there. We will keep on being critical of them. I am not under contract, and I'm allowed to have my opinion that they're actually silencing the conversation. Blink twice, Erich, if I'm onto something. Gabby's commented on fiance's situation. Gabby said this: I know who I am, but I'm with the man who did this, so that's a reflection of me. Erich did write an apology, which is what he was supposed to do, at the very least. Now it's our problem, and it's my turn to teach him and try to enforce how important it is to me. And of course, it's not just about Gabby giving up the emotional labor to teach Erich. Erich's also got to take those steps on his own. And of course, as we see here, it appears that he's been doing that. Why those conversations haven't been made and put into fruition? Looking at you, Bachelor producers. If anyone wants to help out, we are doing some charity work this week to our friends in Florida. The Diaz family recovered after Hurricane Ian damaged their home with flooding, and they need some basic supplies and some cash to achieve that. A warm dinner would be a great thing if you could help donate that. There's a link in the comment section below, and we'll have more content coming to you right after this. Bye, guys.